Hello, my name is Kefka14, and today I'm going to be running Doraemon 2. Doraemon 2 is a Japanese exclusive 64 game. It has an extremely small speed game community. As such, it's pretty fresh off the plate. There's still being developed. So I thought it would be a good time to show it off because it's also a really terrible game. So, I'm ready to get into this. Whenever someone's ready to start the timer, I'll give the countdown. In 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so the game starts off as every great speed game does, with a boatload of cutscenes. One interesting thing is, for an earlier game in the 64's library, all of the cutscenes in this game are voice acted, which I've personally always thought to be kind of strange. You can tell that's where they put their resources with this, for sure. Yeah, more or less the first 3.5 minutes or so of the game is just some good old chunky cutscenes. We get to zoom out and take a look at some of this delicious late 90s geometry. You know, it kind of looks like if you look at it from the wrong angle, it'll cut you. This game is based on a popular anime series in Japan, the Doraemon series. More or less, there are 3 of them on the Nintendo 64, but tons of Doraemon games that I don't know if any of them have ever been released in the United States. I would assume at least one of them has somewhere. But anyway, the 3 on the Nintendo 64, out of all 3 of them, none of them were released in the first Doraemon game is pretty good, actually. It's not the best game in the world, but it's at least somewhat entertaining. The third one is pretty good as well, actually. The second one, not so much. There's a reason we're running it for horrible games right now. It's not very good. Specifically, what makes it not good, though, is just most of the game is padding. It's more about the fact that they got the original voice cast to reprise their roles and things like that. So, a lot of the gameplay is just very meh, as you will find out. More or less, though, this is the basic general mechanic. As you go through the game, you will pick up items and use items to solve puzzles. Pretty simple stuff. This game tries to be sort of a Zelda, Ocarina of Time kind of clone. Fails miserably at that. The item we just picked up there was a sleeping capsule. We'll use that later. It's essentially like a tent in Final Fantasy. But the first item we picked up was the shrink ray. It's the only time we'll use it. Items are like one use in this game, which is really silly if you think about it. The first 15 minutes or so of this run is a great time for anybody else, staff or anyone who needs to speak if they want to speak, because got tons of cutscenes, things like that in the beginning of this run. Just to make that clear. Going into the subject of the story, basically the main characters have a sort of time machine device, and the time machine crashed into a mysterious new world, and we are slowly gathering up all of our friends, because when it crashed, each friend went to a different location. It's not going to take us too long to gather everybody. So you can skip some of those automatic text boxes there, but what happens as a result is the game doesn't advance the story flag, which is, really annoying. So now we're going to unlock the character that we play as for pretty much the entire run, and that character is Sue. The other characters that are important to mention is the character with the glasses there, that's Nobi. Those are the only 2 characters we're going to play as in this one. Also, notice how when 3 or more character models get on screen, the game lags. So one cool thing, though, is you can just mash through the text, which, that's pretty cool. So a lot of the game is what you're looking at right here. At least until we get into the dungeons. The dungeons are somewhat entertaining. Everything else is just, wow, look at this field. Very Quest 64-like. Only, it gets all the good things of Quest 64, and they just go out the window. So, these guys are essentially trying to talk to us, and they can't. Because well, they can, but we don't understand them. And our characters are remarking on why, or how we can't understand them and we wish we could, and that we should follow them into their village. Because, that's a totally logical thing. Then again, I guess if you were stranded on some strange world, you'd try to find sentient people to link up with as well. I say people loosely. More like, Reject Zora designs. This is probably my favorite, well, I say favorite as in, I think it's the worst looking area in the game. So, it does like a pan around this town. It's like, wow, look, you made it to this beautiful town. It's so gorgeous. Look how fast the waterfall's moving. Like, I like how the back of it's literally just the water texture being stretched out quickly over and over. Quite great. So we go in this door, right over here. We talk to this guy. He's the chief of the village. But we couldn't understand him. We heard something land on the roof, which turned out to be this. This item is the translation gummy. Basically, it lets us understand people. And that's it. Weirdly enough, you never have to use that item. I've always thought that was kind of strange. There's only 2 items in the game like that. Sorry, I apologize for getting quiet there for a second. I heard something loud outside. It was thunder. It is raining here. Now we're gonna get the final character. We'll never play as him. Wow, it's very windy outside. This is Doraemon. He's not doing too hot. He's doing so bad that he's causing the game to lag, in fact. But we talked to this guy, and he gives us an item called the Mini Doraemon, and we can use it. It's basically a 1-up. Fun stuff. Okay, let's see here. I need...
あの光は。来るときはなかったよね。何か聞こえてくるわ。
Okay. Dude, yeah, my power went out right in the middle of a marathon run. Like, it just started pouring the rain here. It was, quite frankly, the worst timing in the universe. Okay. My apologies. Yes, the run is still going. My apologies to
No
everyone.
worries about that.
Yeah,
Tech issues can always happen, and we are still happy to have you here, and we are happy the run is going.
Alright, cool. Thank you. So, I kept the run going during that time. Pretty much nobody missed anything interesting. There was only cutscenes. Of course, I was also simultaneously, like, rebooting my PC because the power went out. So, we'll certainly lose a little bit of time there. I don't recommend using this route. Not very good. But what is going on now, and what everyone missed, is we went and we retrieved some food in the game, because we need food, because we're in a strange, mysterious world. And, now we're chasing down the two main villains. The two main villains were introduced while I was away. Again, my apologies there, but they're comic relief villains, more or less. There's not a whole lot to say about them. Pretty much, though, they stole a gem from the really ugly water town we were playing around in. And the town has asked us to go retrieve it, which is a very simple task. First, we jump up here and skip some text boxes. And then we use this item, which is the invisible paint. Yeah, and it's that simple. Great. The cool thing is, once we start getting to dungeons, you know, we'll actually have some pretty cool action. And I say action loosely. It's more like a child running around with a dangerous weapon. But, I mean, that's action, depending on who you ask. So we come in here, and we get a cutscene with, this guy. Some kind of professor type. He basically explains that in this area there's a dungeon, and in the dungeon there's a crystal. And, you know, there's a hole in the bottom of the sea, all that stuff. And we absorb his essence. Take him with us. So we're gonna go unlock the first dungeon now. The first dungeon's pretty basic. I've always called it Waffle House. Just cause. No real reason. Don't ask why. But in order to open it, we go to 3 main tablets that are in this overworld area here, also known as Emerald Lake. Second tablet's over here. And there we go, boing, boing, boing. Some of the finest platforming in the world. On our way this way, we're gonna stop and grab this paper boat right here. So, then we get a lovely 30-second in-game timer to reach a 4th tablet. It's pretty lenient. So here's our first dungeon. It's not very good. I think the best part of this dungeon is probably the end of it. The boss fight of it's pretty okay. A lot of the cutscenes in this game drag out a little longer than what, like, you feel like they should. Like, it shows the geometry. It's like, look at this place. And it shows it for just a bit longer than what it probably should. I feel like every cutscene in the game just minorly overstays its welcome. But we're finally past the cutscene gauntlet. And we're into the first dungeon, which is, in my opinion, when the run actually starts to get pretty decent. So, automatically you can see the movement is a little bit different side of dungeons. We're going to start off by going into this room over here to retrieve our primary weapon for the run. There is a brief moment where we'll be using a different weapon, but well, there are a couple other weapons we use, but when I say weapon, I mean for fighting, I should say. So you can automatically kind of see the Zelda-esque elements going, like, at play here. We went and we got an item, and then we're coming over here, we're getting a small key, and yes, that's what that is a small key. Or maybe just a key. I'm not sure the correct term for it within the game, but it's a small key. And then we come down here. So the item that we picked up in the first room of this dungeon, or the second room rather, was a gun. Just straight up gun. And we're just gonna run around with it. You know, no big deal. Child with a gun. Running through some catacombs. This is normal. This is as regular as it gets. One small optimization worth mentioning is, depending on what side of a door you go into, passing into a loading zone, you will come out on that side as well. Which, that's not something that a lot of, wow, that was really good. That switch is very finicky. I never shoot that first try. Quite wonderful. Anyway, it's a small time optimization in certain locations. Just to go into the door from the right side. Not right side, but the correct side, I should say. Alright, so we take a right here, and then a left, and then we are going deep this way. And there you go. A lot of this game looks very similar, so much of the geometry and stuff can come across just looking like a maze. See, like here, we're going to go into the right side of the door so that we have a shorter distance here. It's a very small optimization, but the little stuff adds up in a game like this where it's, you know, a lot of the game is pretty much just small optimizations. Alright, so we get our first mini-boss here. It's a pretty simple mini-boss. It can go kind of badly, and it sometimes does. But plenty of cutscenes. Plenty of cutscenes. Alright, so our first boss are essentially the gravestones from Banjo-Kazooie, but with a sword and shield. can kind of just turn straight around. Sometimes he'll be... Their movements are somewhat RNG dependent, so sometimes he'll just be in a better position. We got pretty average luck there. And now we're at the boss of the first dungeon. And then we get to enter the really convoluted section of the game. Many people, including Japanese players who can, you know, read what they're playing. Then again, I guess some non-Japanese can as well, but kids and lots of people got lost in the section coming up, is the point I'm getting to. It's not very clear-cut what the solution is. And as a result, and the limited resources in relation to this game that are on the internet, it took me a decent amount of time to come up with some sort of cohesive route for this section coming up. That's weird. Whatever. So we lost a decent chunk of time just now to something really bizarre. It's something I've only seen happen once, and it's called just forgetting that I need to go past this switch. So that was a me thing. Small time loss. Alright, we go across here, and here's the actual boss. And that's it. Boss is that simple. And we get the gem, and that's Dungeon 1. So in the next section here, we sleep twice. The reason we're doing this is to make it a very specific day. If you notice in the top right of the screen when you're on the overworld, there's sort of a, like a time clock kind of thing. And right now the time clock has a picture of a tree in it. We need the tree to be there. The tree basically makes vegetation within the game be larger, and this is going to allow us to jump up to a specific area. This isn't normally where people get stuck either. There's a section coming up where you have to talk to very specific NPCs in a specific order, and because of the time clock, the NPCs can be in different locations based on what time it is. Well, the other problem is all of the NPCs look the same. So, on top of needing to know where they're at, you kind of just have to brute force figure out which one is which at which time of day, or just follow one around and figure out a route. Oh, that's fun. It's always fun falling right there. Here's a fun optimization right here. Boop. Jumping right across that corner. We come up here, and we get another cutscene where the villains taunt us because we can't progress forward. So, I have managed to find a way to skip certain cutscenes in this game, but this game is heavily reliant on story flags. As a result, if you skip a cutscene in the game that is required, the story flag won't advance. I have not found any particular way to manipulate this yet. Very good mushrooms. The hitboxes for those mushrooms are very weird, and those mushrooms are also the reason we needed it to be free-day. Needing it to be a specific day only comes into play one other time within the run, and it's not too far from now. Also, if you don't like this song that you're hearing right now, my apologies. You're gonna be hearing a lot of it. So he gives us an item. Or she. I'm not sure if that character is a he or she. Fair. He dropped a necklace down in this sort of pond. We give it back to him, and he lets us in the village. Ah, this village. Granny Village. Granny Village is quite possibly the worst just place in the entire game. I don't know that I dislike any place I've ever been in a video game more than this place. Not only because it's convoluted, but, well, you have to climb up and down it so much. And it's just really annoying. There's no fast way up or down it. Kind of stagger your way up it. Boing, boing, boing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go here into the chief's house and talk to the chief. This will allow us to be able to sleep in his bed. And we're going to do that pretty much immediately. This will make it wind day. We don't need it to be wind day. We just need it to be not the same day that it is. Then we're going to reset the console. And the reason we're going to do this is it resets the NPC positions. So if you notice, we're running past this greenhouse here. You're going to see a guy come out the door. Yep. That means we're good to go. That means we got the cycle that we need to get, which it's pretty much guaranteed if you just slept and reset the console. Seriously. Otherwise, you have to roam all over this village looking for the characters we're about to go talk to. It's very frustrating. Go down here. You see two guys running into the fence. Talk to the first one. Talk to the second one. Now, depending on what time of day it is and what day it is, the positions of those NPCs are different. It was a nightmare to route and figure out what was going on. Then you talk to that NPC, and his position does change as well. They can enter and exit loading zones, which is something that shocked me when I discovered it. Then we go in this door. We talk to this NPC. Then we come out of the house. And we use our sleep capsule that we obtained earlier in the run. We'd have to go all the way back up to the chief's house as the next closest place to sleep if we didn't have that sleep capsule. So it's quite useful to have it. Anyway, we come in here and we talk to this girl, and she's sick. And her brother has went to some area to retrieve an herb to heal her. But she's worried about him, so we're gonna go check on him. So we go back into this area, or Sapphire Falls, and get used to this area as well. This whole chunk of the game, there's a whole lot of just back and forth chicanery. It's terrible. But anyway, here's her brother. He's telling us that the herb's in there, but he can't get inside because it's locked, but he thinks the chief has a key. So now we gotta go talk to the chief. You can see why I don't like this section of the game very much. It's very, like, repetitive is almost not the right word. Because if it were repetitive, it would be... If it were repetitive, it would be literally the same thing. But it's like we're halfway doing the same thing over and over. Anyway, we talk to the chief. He gives us a key. And we're going to make a pit stop here to grab this item. That item is called the Voice Solidifier. Yes, you heard me correctly, the Voice Solidifier. We'll get to what that does later. It's coming up, not too long from now. So, then we go back down here, and if you notice, I'm making sure to run over this mushroom. It kind of clips you forward, saves a little bit of time, plus you don't take fall damage. But the item that the chief gave us was a key to this. A literal, like, coloring book maze. Pretty much. I was kind of in disbelief when I first got to this section. I was like, really? Like, there's no enemies in this, no puzzle. Puzzle is just get to the end, and you don't get warped out. You have to go all the way back through it. Why wouldn't you? It's just so weird. Doraemon 1 and 3 are really good speed games, and this one is just, well, horrible, frankly. Anyway, we get our herb or flower or whatever it is. And we gotta take it back to the girl. And then we get to sleep 6 times in a row. Alright, there's the maze. Now for some of the most infuriating platforming in the game. So, it's no longer tree day, so we can't use the mushrooms to get back up. When we talked to the boy before, we warped automatically back to the village. Well, now we have to climb this beanstalk. Its hitbox is terrible. That was very good. And sometimes you can just try to jump onto those leaves and just get completely different results. It's absolutely terrible. We only have to jump up it one more time, though. Thank goodness. The next thing we do is we gotta take the flower, the girl, and that sets the story flag to the point to where we can go to the second dungeon. I like this little path behind their house here. Saves a little bit of time. Kinda nice. Don't you just love climbing the same geometry over and over? And I don't mean in a Mario 64 castle lobby kind of way either. Anyway, we come in here and we sleep 6 times. And the reason for that is it's the quickest way for us to reach Wind Day. But first, we're going to come down here and we're going to switch this to that. What that particular menu was time. And it's the speed at which the time of day flows. I have it set to fast at the beginning of the run to make the NPCs be at a specific place. I'm setting it to slow now, that way it no longer matters what day it is. Or what time it is, because the time is now set to slow. We're going to be faster than we need to be. I believe that was my 5th time sleeping. I'm going to double check. Make sure I don't sleep too many times. It was. We sleep one more time. A small time loss, but for marathon safety. Okay. And now the game continues. So we come up here, and we notice the professors are back. We absorb their essence. Actually, they kind of just vanish in that cutscene. I never noticed that till just now for some. Then we come back here, and we get to climb half of the village again. Yeah, hey, yeah. Hey. I love the little noises. So anyway, we need to figure out how to get to the next dungeon. And there's the canyon up ahead has a big tornado kind of thing in it. This guy explains to us that if we help Vix's kite, that he'll give us some information that can help us. So that's what we're doing. We're gonna go fix his kite. Although we were told that an item all the way back at Emerald Lake might be able to help us. So that's what we're doing now. For some reason, Nobi, the character in the title of the game, for some reason Nobi volunteers to go do this solo. And when I first got to this section of the game, I thought to myself, oh cool, so I have to play as this character for a little bit and like Does that mean, like, the parties are gonna split up and I'm gonna, you know, do something interesting? No. It literally means exactly what it sounds like. We are playing as just this character, and we are running back across the same unchanged geometry that we've already been across. I'm serious. That's it. Riveting stuff. Best speed game in the world. It's interesting. If you could figure out how to skip cutscenes, you'd save a very large amount of time in this game. So we come back here, and we have to get an item that is near a tree. Now, there's a cutscene near the tree that if you walk kind of in a weird way, you can accidentally trigger it and lose time. That's not going to happen, obviously. Still, it's worth mentioning. If you go too far to the right front side of that tree, it triggers it. Anyway, the item we just grabbed is the time handkerchief. And basically, you can put the time handkerchief over something else, and it will revert said thing back to a previous state. So essentially, it like restores something to a previous version of itself. But first, we have some more padding to get through. So we come up here. We're like, cool. We're making our way all the way back to the village. And cutscene. This section here has always been one of the more annoying parts of the game to me, because they could have just as easily put the time handkerchief somewhere that you've not been yet. There's like 2 other locations in this area that you never explore in the actual run. And it would have just been more interesting to at least go somewhere different, you know? But no. No, we don't get to do that, unfortunately. We just, get to run over some good old flat plains. Plains and falls and fields and whatever. So they came to try to shoot us, and the little guy from earlier in the run saved us. The moment when my power cut out, there was a cutscene with that little guy that explained more about his origin and who he was. He is the god of light, and like the de facto deity of this world or whatever. And he explains to us that we need to go gather some crystals so we can restore the crystal in the Temple of Light, or something another like that. Ganondorf is taking over the Sacred Realm, and we have to kill Bowser in order to, I don't know, stop King Dedede from winning. There you go. That's the story. But real talk, the game is legitimately making us go backwards through the same geometry again, right now, just so we can go get Nobi. But we're gonna use the funniest item in the game, the voice solidifier. It is exactly what it sounds like. Nice, right? His voice literally solidifies and becomes the bridge. What a concept. And we fell in the water again. Nice. So now that the gang's all back together, what do you think's next? That's right. We're going back across the same geometry again. Isn't it lovely? And we gotta jump up this stupid beanstalk. One more time. It's that second leaf that'll get you. Its hitbox is kind of weird, where it's like sticking off to the left or whatever. Really weird. So the good news is this is the last time we're climbing up this stupid village. Say goodbye to it. I hope y'all enjoyed being here. I hope you'll miss it. I know I won't. I will miss getting to go up the stairs. That's kind of fun. in all seriousness, I highly recommend looking into the Doraemon series on the 64 as a whole if you're looking for some interesting speed games. This one's certainly the least interesting of the bunch, but there are much worse speed games to be. Doraemon 1 and 3, a lot of fun. A whole lot of fun, actually. So we come back up here to this guy's kite. We use our time handkerchief. Then, uh-oh. Where's the episode of Boundary Break about this? What's happening under that? Where did the other kite model go? Anyway, we talked to the guy. He explains to us that we need to be faster if we want to get through the next area. And he gives us an item that increases our movement speed. But it's in his house. So weird, right? Like, why did they do this? No idea. But we pick them up. They're called the Scud Shoes. And you'll notice our movement speed is quite a bit increased. So we come back up here to Ruby Canyon. And we let this tornado chase us out. And you have to run as soon as it vanishes. Be able to just squeeze past it right there. This is one of the more confusing areas in the game for sure. It's, again, more or less a maze. There are 3 areas in the game that are just mazes. And, in my opinion, this is the worst of the 3. Well, then again, maybe not, but the other one's shorter. So, I don't know. I'll let you be the judge when we get to the other one. If you looked in the background there, you could see the dungeon we're going to, and the second dungeon is my favorite. The goal of this area, it doesn't tell you what the goal is, but the goal of this area is to hit some switches. And not get lost. Which is easier said than done, if I'm being real. Come over here and we go. There's a cool strat you can do here in this next room. I'm not going to try it because it'll lose time. And it doesn't lose a whole lot of time to not do it. But you can fit in between those 2 little tornadoes. And they'll all 3 collide on you at once. And it'll kind of clip you forward a few steps. It saves like a second. It's interesting. So we come over here, take a left, go past these guys, then we take a right through this crack, and we take another right. One of the larger challenges in running this game is just remembering where you need to go because everything looks so similar. Okay, so here is the definition of redundancy. We walk up on this dungeon, and it's just like, hey, here's a dungeon, right? You want to go in this dungeon? Check it out. Big golden doors, road to El Dorado, whatever. And you're like, cool. Dungeon. I get it. Alright, let's walk in. Oh, dungeon again. Cool. Oh, doors are open now. Like, why didn't the developers make that one continuous cutscene? What was the point of that? Like, what? Like, I literally took like 4 steps and got another cutscene that essentially was the same thing. There's just no point. Anyway, here we are in the second dungeon. We start off by jumping on this switch twice. That switch is a toggle switch, and we need it to be in the up position to jump up to where we just did. To get the, I guess you could call them push or slap gloves. I call them the push gloves, because it's the only thing we ever use it for. So pretty much in every dungeon, you're gonna get a cutscene where the main villains are, well, they're not the main villains, they're the sub-villains. And pretty much there's a cutscene on every dungeon where they're just like, hey, you can't get us, we're higher up than you. And they more or less reveal what you have to do in order to proceed, which we already know what we have to do. So the only purpose in these gloves is to push this one block. We will be unequipping these gloves very, very soon and never using them. They are technically a weapon, though. But the attack is just terrible. Here, I'll show what it looks like. Yeah, it's horrible. We don't use that to fight, ever. We have to run back up to the first area of this dungeon to hit that toggle switch. What the toggle switch does is there's 2 platforms in the room we were just in, and it toggles which one of those platforms are raised and which one is lowered. You need to raise the opposite that we just had raised. Go up here, they tell us there's a switch on the wall, and then we go get the best weapon in Doraemon 3, the Faint Bang. Or just the grenade, if you prefer. We equip it right now. Hit the switch on the wall, and we're ready to move on. And we got some pretty cool platforming coming up, actually. At least in my opinion. I think it's probably the best platforming in the game. Which isn't saying a lot, but it's something. So this first area here. Next part here is pretty cool. This, that. Next room. You can jump across without knocking that little gate down. I usually knock it down for safety anyway, to save too much time to knock. There's a potion here that heals you. You don't need to pick it up, but it's pretty much right in the path, so we'll grab it for safety. And cutscene. I like how the boulder gets stuck on the geometry as it's rolling out of that, and like, clips to the other side. It's like, I don't know, it's just fascinating. So the boulders in this section are somewhat RNG. There'll always be the same amount of boulders that are the same sizes, but like their left and right positions change slightly. Alright, so here's probably the hardest room in the game as a whole. One really tight jump, I'll go for it like twice. Right here. Alright, we got it first try, that's nice. This game kind of feels just like permanent ice physics, for those wondering. So you could damage boost through that guy and not do that, but we'll blow him up just so he can't mess with us. Again, a little bit of marathon safety. Although this guy we will damage boost. We can just go on. Then we're gonna equip the gun for the boss. Speaking of, we are at the boss. And this is probably the hardest boss I've ever fought in a game. In my life, actually. It's absolutely, like, I'll put it to you this way. I spent weeks routing this one boss. Like, the boss itself has some of the craziest movement I've ever seen, and it's dead already. By the way, you can literally just walk forward and hold B, the gun, and it dies. Wonderful. The first 2 bosses are really easy. The third boss is actually kind of strange, as you'll see. The last boss isn't hard, per se, but there's certainly some weirdness to it. So we stood there for an extra second, because if you notice that creature lowering into the water, right? Well, you can absolutely jump too early and fall in the water. In fact, my PB/world record does. Which is always fun. That's a great place to mess up. So that's our second dungeon. We're gonna sleep for safety, just heal ourselves up. Normally I wouldn't do that there, but again, marathon. Gotta grab that item on the way out. I forget what it's called, but it's it teleports you. Is the easiest way to explain what it does. Because I really don't know technically what it does. Here's the last maze of the game. And it's pretty hideous. The 100% category for this game is going to be an absolute nightmare because of this one particular loading zone. Full of all sorts of just collectible crap you can find. And it's hideous. So anyway, any percent path is left, right. You can go left and there'll be a rock. Boom. You go right again to get this yellow gem, which has a very important purpose later in the run. And that's it. So it's a very short maze if you don't know where to go, but it is extremely easy to get turned around in this area because everything just looks so similar. Like, it's one of those 64 games where it's just like, how many vomit textures can we copy-paste in a row to, like, I don't know. It's just terrible. So we're coming up on the last village. We spend very little time in the last area. You can tell that they sort of just rushed this game out the door beyond this point. Third dungeon is extremely short. The whole third area is very short in comparison. Then we're just immediately onto the final boss. One of the strangest final bosses in gaming, in my opinion. That I've personally experienced, rather. It's just not very bossy. You'll all see what I mean. Jump up.
Alright. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to hop in really fast to say that the lake received redeemed hydrate. So everyone stay hydrated. It's really important.
So we only have to return to this village one other time, which is crazy considering you go in and out of the second village in the game like, you know, a solid 700,000 times or so. One thing that made routing this game very interesting though was the lack of resources, and it's something I recommend speedrunners do more often. It's really fun to tackle a game that has almost nothing and just see what you can come up with, what kind of strats you can discover, and knowledge that you can find, even if it's buried deep out there on just some obscure forum or something. Like, I don't know, it's just it's a lot of fun. So this is our last area pan cutscene with this particular track, so enjoy it while it lasts. Although this area is my favorite overworld area in the game. It has some pretty interesting movement compared to other parts of the overworld, I guess you could say. Like, if the whole game were like this overworld area, it would be a little more tolerable. At least in my opinion. So there is a tricky jump you can do there to save about a second. We're not going to bother. We come up here and we get clouds in a can. That's seriously what it's called, is clouds in a can. And we use our clouds in a can, and it just fills in these clouds. So, nothing too exciting, but hey, it's clouds in a can. And then we get another can of clouds in a can. Clouds in a can. Clouds in it, like, I don't know, like, the more you say it, the less it feels like real words. Or maybe you're saying it like in a possessive tense, like Cloud, the character Cloud from Final Fantasy, is in a can. Cloud's in a can. It's in a can of Axe body spray. You need to go get it. Anyway. We walk up here, talk to that NPC. He's standing right outside of the third dungeon. Like how easy it was to locate that one. Then we talk to this NPC here. He gives us a some kind of microphone item. I forget the specific name for it. Small skip there, and a pretty good skip right there. We just about missed it though. Then we go back to the village just the one time to fuse with the professor's essence. I need to be clear, we're not literally fusing with anyone's essence. It's more so that they join our party. It just looks like we're absorbing them. So I find that slightly funny. I always get stuck on that door frame. I don't think I've ever not gotten stuck on that door frame on the way back out of that house. That's the real final boss. Door frames in games. Trying to cut corners too close and getting stuck on geometry. Up here, boing. So we can actually save a little bit of time here by jumping straight to the clouds this time. Pretty cool little time to save. And we're basically in the third dungeon. The final dungeon as well. We are rapidly drawing you into this game. Probably in the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, tops. Tops. This is a pretty funny cutscene. I like the little squiggles to denote that he's singing. Great. Alright, it tells us that the dungeon won't open with that. We use the microphone item that an NPC just gave us. Naturally. Sometimes the game can soft lock when booting up this dungeon. I've only seen it happen twice. Didn't happen this time. But you save right before it, so it's not a huge deal if it does happen. I lost a world record pace run to it once, though, which was very frustrating. Grab a small key. Back out the door we go. To a very strange room, honestly. Kind of the only room like this in the game. That last one will always hit you and kind of push you forward if you're just trying to go straight through. Then we need to get one more item up here, the boxing gloves. Sometimes that platform I jumped on that lifted us up here, it doesn't respond right. I'm not really sure why. It's just finicky. So here's our last encounter. Well, not last encounter overall, but the last time they really try to mess with it. And this time they actually fight us. The only time we fight them during the game. Directly. And again, let me show you the strat for this. By the way, I'm using a RAFnet GameCube to N64 adapter. Quite great. Especially if you don't like dealing with 64 controllers. Yeah, we won. So, very easy boss. It's also worth mentioning this game has a difficulty setting, and we are set on easy. But the default setting is normal. Also worth mentioning. So, if those of you want to run it yourself, make sure to set your difficulty to easy. Save time. So here's the only time we use the boxing gloves. Entire game. Just need it for that key. You can technically skip hitting that switch, but it's very tricky. You have to run out here very fast to get around that sort of moving minecart kind of thing. Here's one of the harder rooms in the game. And what makes it hard isn't the platforming, it's the little white guys moving through the air. They're RNG, and they can just absolutely knock you straight to the ground. So we're already on the boss of the third dungeon. So I went ahead and just kept my gloves equipped. They're pretty good for the first phase there. You can knock out 4 of the balls. This phase, I'm going to go ahead and call out to help for my other HiG gamer friends and fellows. Somebody find a better way to fight this boss during this phase. There are technically some better weapons you can get in the game, like a homing gun and stuff, but I'm really not sure it would save any time. Go get them. Although the best strat I found is when he goes to his third form, You can quick kill him by simply spamming grenades on the center of him. I also take this opportunity to go ahead and switch back to the gun. Not really sure what this enemy is canonically called. It's definitely the most interesting boss in the game. I've always called him Balls, or Vector Man. Oops. Alright. We are very rapidly approaching the final boss. Very, very rapidly. So once these guys run into this portal, a cutscene will trigger, and we're in the end game, officially. Alright, let's go beat Bowser. Like, what could the final boss be in this game? Well, maybe a giant man made of triangles? Maybe the two villains we've been seeing in a robot? That's pretty logical, right? Oh, I know. Some kind of evil crystal. Kind of like in Wario World. That would make sense. That'd make a lot of sense. You all can guess among yourselves on what the final boss of this game is. But I promise...
May I cut in for a second?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks a lot to Treaty Wolf for gifting 10 subs to the channel. It's highly appreciated. Really, thank you so much for it.
Excellent. So if you're wondering that Isengard Tower looking sort of thing there, that's the boss. As in, we're fighting like an obelisk. The actual official name for it is the obelisk. It's literally just a tower. I don't get it either. When I first saw it, I was in disbelief that it even was the final boss. There's a few weird things to note about this boss, though. The yellow crystal I picked up earlier in the game makes there be more platforms spawned in this battle. There are other additional gems I can pick up that will change the conditions in battle as well. More specifically, there's a green gem that cuts the final boss's health in half. Notice that I did not pick up that gem. The reason for that is we are on easy mode, and frankly, we don't need it to have half health. It takes more time to go get the gem itself, essentially, than it does to actually just go straight to the boss, in other words. On easy. On normal mode, definitely faster to get the green gem. The boss has considerably higher amount of health on normal mode. If we can get the quick cycle here. You can kind of just stagger back and forth. You always want to keep yourself in the center of these platforms. He absolutely will knock you off. But you just keep holding B. Sometimes you can kill the second section of it before you get to the top here and have to wait. But usually not. Usually it happens right about here-ish. Interesting. Isn't this fight riveting? Come on, section number 2. Blow up already. There he goes. So now we're on to the final. Final phase. We'll back up out of the way. Time is coming up as soon as this boss turns red. I'm gonna heal though, so you got a moment. And time. And that's Doraemon 2. There are technically some more inputs, but it's just cutscenes. So, that's the run. This is the first time it's ever been featured at a marathon, so I want to thank all the staff and everybody, especially, for accepting it and getting it in. I'm so sorry that my power went out I'm glad it was at the beginning of the run and not somewhere interesting though, and I would say a solid 98% of the run was seen, so that's good. And I'm glad we were able to get it back up. But I'm gonna be running Powerpuff Girls Chemical Extraction next, so I'm gonna let staff take over, and we'll be with you all shortly with that.
Yeah, there again. Thanks for running this game. It was really funny. It definitely fits the marathon.
What was the
I
final
have to admit
time?
that.
What was my final time, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
Your final time was 1:04 or 8.
Oh, cool. That's pretty good. All right.
Yeah, that's really nice time. Again, it was really enjoyable run. But yeah, we will see you in a short second again when you are back with Powerpuff Girls.
All right. Thank you.
So yeah, see you in a sec. So at chat, we will take a short intermission and we'll be right back.